Jimmy Lai is 78. He has rotting teeth, he has diabetes, heart issues, and recently he's visibly been losing weight. And now he has been sentenced to 20 years. It is effectively not a life sentence, it's a death sentence.
We now come to the urgent question. Sir Iain Duncan Smith.
Mr. Speaker, to ask the Foreign Secretary if they'll make a statement on the 20-year sentence imposed on our brave citizen, Jimmy Lai, a British citizen.
Welcome. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, may I thank the Right Honourable Member for his question on this very serious matter. He will know that the UK condemns in the strongest terms the politically motivated prosecution of British national Jimmy Lai. As the Foreign Secretary said this morning, 20 years is tantamount to a life sentence for a 78-year-old man. We remain deeply concerned for Mr. Lai's health. We call on the Hong Kong authorities to release him on humanitarian grounds so that he may be reunited with his family. Sadly, this sentence is not a surprise. The national security law was imposed on Hong Kong by Beijing precisely to silence China's critics. That is why the government has long called for the repeal of the national security law and for the end to the persecution of all individuals charged under it. It is also why the Prime Minister raised Jimmy Lai's case with President Xi on his recent visit to Beijing. The Prime Minister's visit allowed us to open up discussion with China, making our case directly to the Chinese President is an approach being taken by the USA, Canada, France, Ireland, and many other allies. The Foreign Secretary has been in touch with Mr. Lai's family in relation to the private conversations that have happened, and I know that many in this House will want to express their support for the family. We recognise their fortitude at this incredibly difficult time. Mr. Speaker, this government remains steadfast in our support for the people of Hong Kong. That is also why today the Home Secretary has announced the expansion of eligibility for the B&O visa route. The UK has welcomed around 200,000 Hong Kongers since 2021, and we will unequivocally continue to uphold our commitments to them. This government's utmost priority is to secure the release of Jimmy Lai, an elderly, unwell British citizen. He has endured an extraordinary ordeal for 5 years, and we call for this to end now. That is why we are focusing on the action that will help him the most: sustained engagement with China, making our case consistently and directly. As the Right Honourable Member knows, we shouldn't sit outside the room, refusing to engage, where you can't even have that conversation. And I am grateful to have the opportunity today, Mr. Speaker, to reiterate this government's call for Jimmy Lai's immediate release.
Right, let's go back to Sir Iain.
I'm grateful for you granting this. Today, as the Minister said, Jimmy Lai, a British citizen, has been in prison for a further 20 years. Now, given his poor health and the fact that he sat for 5 years in solitary confinement, this is not a sentence, it is a death sentence on this brave man. They've trashed everything that we would consider reasonable in law. I, for example, as others, I was named 9 times in this prosecution case, and I've never even met him, or sadly, ever even spoken to him. I ask the question simply of the Minister. Why does the UK government statement they released today refer to Jimmy Lai as a British national? Lord Cameron finally changed that and made it clear that he was a British citizen. Yes. Can she not now say that she will now change that and call him a British citizen, which is what he is? And why does this constantly now refer me to Hong Kong and to the national security law? But the reality is that the British government has sanctioned absolutely nobody in the Chinese government for trashing the Sino-British agreement and now installing the Chinese national security law, which is the reason why Jimmy Lai has been arrested. And he has been convicted and sentenced for nothing more than standing up for freedom of speech and peaceful protesting for democracy. So I asked the Minister as well, Mr. Speaker. The government went on a visit to China recently, and they before that granted full planning permission for this huge and ghastly Chinese embassy in London. At least, I say to the Minister, surely why did they not hold back, if that's what they want to do, on that planning permission? So say to the Chinese government, you must release Jimmy Lai now and cut and cancel this prosecution altogether. Otherwise, you will not get your Chinese embassy, instead of which we've given it to them free and for nothing, and the Prime Minister was treated like dirt while he was out there. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, that Sebastian Lai and Claire Lai, children of Jimmy Lai, have fought for him, and I feel sorry for them, and my thoughts go to them. But surely, that indeed a sad day for anybody that believes in freedom, justice, the legitimate rule of democratic-made law, and now will the government call for a humanitarian parole.
Minister.
I thank the Right Honourable Member for his question. He may have missed my reference in my opening remarks to Jimmy Lai being a British citizen, but perhaps I can reiterate that again. And it is important to reiterate what also we have said today, which is that we call on the Hong Kong authorities to release Jimmy Lai immediately on humanitarian grounds so that he may be reunited with his family and for him to be receiving all the necessary medical treatment and for full access to independent medical professionals. The Right Honourable Member will also know that the Prime Minister raised Jimmy Lai's case with President Xi on the 29th of January in Beijing. And since the visit, the Foreign Secretary has been in contact with Mr Lai's family. The FCDO are also in close contact with Mr Lai's international legal team, Doughty Street Chambers, and his son and daughter, Sebastian and Claire. And the Foreign Secretary last met with Sebastian and Claire on the 8th of January. In relation to the Chinese embassy, national security is our first duty. The planning decision was taken independently by the Secretary of State for Housing, the conclusion of a process that he may remember began in 2018, when the then Foreign Secretary provided formal diplomatic consent for the plans. But it is also important to be saying today that we stand with the people of Hong Kong, and we will always honour the historic commitments made under the legally binding Sino-British Joint Declaration, and China must do the same.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Emily Fowler.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Jimmy Lai is 78. He has rotting teeth. He has diabetes, heart issues, and recently he's visibly been losing weight. And now he has been sentenced to 20 years. It is effectively not a life sentence, it's a death sentence. I would urge the Chinese authorities to end this elderly man's appalling ordeal, and I would ask that they exercise clemency and allow him to be reunited with his family. Does the Minister agree with me that the concern for the suffering of Jimmy Lai extends far beyond his family and touches the hearts of so many British people?
Minister.
I thank my right honourable friend, and indeed she makes a very powerful point, and she is absolutely right that the situation that Jimmy Lai is in and the urgency of the need to release him on humanitarian grounds so that he may be reunited with his family and receive the independent medical treatment that he must have is a matter that goes beyond his family and indeed touches the hearts, I know, of members across this House and across this country.